Welcome to I Finally Get It. This week we have Greg Jofra with G2 Land Services. In studio with me as always, Dustin Webb, our producer. I'm your host, Jeff Martin. Let's get it.
Not to steal any phrases from anybody, but you can't do this on your own.
Yeah.
Any kind of business you're in, I don't care what it is, you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Whether that's a key right-hand person or whether that's a supporting spouse or both, you can't do it alone.
Who's been your key right-hand person?
Elaine, for sure, my wife. That's who we started the business together. She was actually doing land work in-house with a producer here in town, and they were slowing down, and she was taking the summer off to spend it with our oldest daughter, who was going to high school, who now has graduated college.
Isn't that crazy?
And she decided she wanted to spend some time with her before high school, and I said, let's look at opening this up, and she came on board and helped me do it. I could not have done that alone, but you know, that, and then my other key person, I have a young lady, Lauren, who runs my I'll call it all the financial paperwork, HR side, and she's been instrumental in our business.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
Yeah, she's gonna love this. Being called out. she's the admin, right?
She is. It's more than that, but yeah.
Sure.
But I mean, from handling accounts payable and receivable, we're in a business that you're dealing with big corporations, and your pay scale could be 60, 90, 120 days out.
Yeah.
So she has to stay on top of that, whether it's the invoicing, where it is in their process, and I don't have the time to do that because I'm worrying about the project side.
Sure.
So it takes more than one person.
You know what? And that is a great tip, because we think, you hear solopreneur and it's so sexy these days. And I'm going to tell you, it's very lonesome,
It's
and
just my
it's just
side is
hard.
a lot. Just my side is a lot. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine trying to I'd be there 23 and a half hours a day if I had to do it all on my own. So no, your business is who you are in the sense of what people you have.
Yeah.
You can say it however you want, but the people who are with you are what makes the wheel go around. And for me, that's a key component of G2 is we're very selective in our hiring. I like to hire great people who are good landmen, not necessarily great landmen who are just okay people.
Yeah, no, it won't work.
It won't work.
Not in your culture.
So you have to have great people, and so that's a key component, and that's from the top to the bottom.
So how did you get into the land services business in the start?
That's a great question too. A long time ago, many years ago, I happened to be a runner for a law firm, and I was going down a hall here in town. They asked me to get a certain paper signed by someone else, and I ran across a family friend who said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm coming to get this other attorney to sign this paperwork," and he's like, come talk to me after. And so we did that. I went to talk to him. He kind of introduced me to what it was, because I'd already understood recording, and I've already understood getting stuff certified, et cetera. And so that was how I broke in. And, Jeff, that I didn't think of it at the time as being a great movement for me. It was just a job.
Yeah.
But I went to a very small shop. And so I had to do everything, or I had to be a part of everything, whether it was a due diligence, whether it was title. It didn't matter. Go and get some leases signed, getting a seismic permit signed. I had to do it all. Not everybody gets that opportunity. They might graduate with a PLRM degree and then turn around and go become an abstractor, and they never get the leasing side, or they never get the due diligence side. And so for me, It really rounded me out from the beginning, because I kind of understood all the components. So a God point there where it just kind of happened that I ended up in a small shop, and I had to do it all.
And
so
I guess you loved it. And you saw.
I love the people side. I mean, I'm a people guy.
Yeah,
so I love the people side. And then you get into their history and you start understanding why they did this and why it split off between these two brothers who don't talk anymore. And then it, you know what I mean? That intrigued me. So it was like putting together the pieces of a puzzle.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like today, but how did it get to this part? And so that was the business side of it, learning that really helped me in the long run.
Yeah, and in your business, and I happen to know about what you do, but I want you to explain it to me like I'm a kindergartner, right? Because not everybody understands exactly what you do and why, right?
And it's changed a lot. So a landman is really the liaison between the oil and gas company
Mm-hmm.
and the landowner or the mineral owner. What happens is typically you get hired by the oil and gas company to go out and figure out who owns it, because they give you a red outline on a map. We think it's right here. Go find it. We got to figure out who those people are. We got to get them on a lease. We got to establish some type of surface location. We got to figure out, obviously, who all the mineral owners are, because that's what we're going after. Access roads in and out. If there's right-of-way, easements, servitudes that come into play. I mean, so the components of what we do is really on the front end. We're phase 1 of 1. For them to be able to, they assess where it is, and then we get out there before any other operations are going on, and we're trying to get everything assembled. That has changed over the years. Technology's changed a lot. We don't necessarily have to be in a courthouse anymore. Typically, if you were drilling a well in Oklahoma, you'd go hire a crew from Oklahoma to go out there and assess the land and figure out who the owners are and lease them. In South Louisiana, that's kind of what was going on. But now that your courthouse records, everything's online.
Yeah.
It's opened up markets for us to get into, but it's also created competition for us every time we turn around.
Yeah, sure.
Because now this developer out of Houston could hire a group out of Oklahoma to do work in Abbeville.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So you're really having to market yourself and your sales side across the whole United States. And your big component areas are Oklahoma City, Houston, Dallas, Denver, Tulsa. I mean, that's really your big areas. You have to market yourself for everything because everybody else is competing for the work that's in your backyard.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah. That's a different variable.
And to change it up just a little bit, you have a lot of other things that have come into play. You have carbon captures coming into play. All the wind has come into play. All the solar farms have come into play. And that's because our skill sets transcend over very easily, whether that's figuring out who the landowner is, the surface owner, figuring out if we can get a lease for them, et cetera. So we've had to adjust just because there hasn't been a ton of drilling going on over the last 4 or 5 years that we've all had to adjust and take on those components.
I just have a special interest in what you do because my family has land. And here's a question for you. We had a well hit, and it was a big natural gas producer, but they couldn't build a pipeline out, right? They thought they had an agreement. Is that the mistake of the oil field company, the landmen that brought it on?
No, that's not a land. That's typically not a landman's problem. That's typically your operator. Your operator should have been looking in how are we going to transport this before we drill this well. Because even though you find, and a lot of times they can store it on the property and then truck in and out and do that. It just depends upon, but typically that's an operator issue. The operator should have done their due diligence on how we're going to get this to market. Yeah.
So G2 also deals with hunting leases, timber sales. Do you do that as well?
We have another component that deals with land management.
Uh-huh.
And land management can be anything from timber and hunting leases to agriculture. We do have another component that just does land management for large landowners. What we have found is there's an absent place in the market for what I call these absentee landowners. Typically, people of our age and a little bit older, that 60s age bracket, they're the ones coming into ownership of the land.
Mm-hmm.
And they were the ones who mom and dad made everybody go to college. So they are the college generation. They are the people who have, they're a CPA or an attorney, or they married a doctor and they live in Baton Rouge and the property's in Marksville. And nobody goes back to the property because, we lease it out to Jim the farmer down the street and blah, blah, blah. So we've come in to help manage those expectations just from a property side. there's a lot of components that go into that too, where it's what are you doing for agriculture, and are you doing deer leases on it, and have you checked to make sure everybody has their insurance, and you know what I mean? It's just there's a lot of things that also go into that maybe a young lady who's 40 years old and married to a CPA in Baton Rouge, and they have 4 kids, and she's running around. She doesn't have time to manage the family property, right?
Correct.
So we kind of come in for a nominal fee to try and assist in all that.
And I know firsthand everything you're saying is 100% correct. It is.
And there's really not there are some management groups in there, but typically they're timber oriented, and they come in, and of course they're doing it for their deal, but we try and do it for all.
So what is your favorite part of the business? I guess you said the people, but is it dealing with these families? Because oftentimes you do have families that are disconnected.
That's a tough situation.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly put in a tough situation because they try and pit you against the other side, right?
Yeah,
so I don't like the family situations. Obviously, I love to see success, whether that's drilling a good well and a family come into a windfall of cash. That, again, creates problems for some of them where they they're bickering amongst themselves about it. But in the Landman in G2, my favorite part is whether I'm dealing with our interns or the young landmen who just don't have the experience, so to speak. I enjoy that side of it. And that goes back to my coaching background from years ago. But helping them put more arrows in their quiver and becoming a better, well-rounded landman, learning due diligence and the things that I was gifted and not realizing I was gifted it. Really, I try and impose that on the guys and gals that come to work for us because I know how it benefited me. And so I'm just trying to give them what I got by happenstance.
Giving back. And
so I do that the same way. I bounce them to different project managers because, working with, Jim may not be the same as working with Sally, and they might work better with Sally, and so they understand it or it just clicks better. So for me, it's absolutely making sure they get to work with different project managers, putting them on different jobs where they have to use different parts of their skill set to work. So if they choose to stay with us after their internship, great. Then I've done myself a fantastic job. I've got a better landman. The other side is if they choose to leave, that's fine too. They get to go to another group, but they're walking in there a better landman than they did before they started with us or before they interned with us.
I love it. I love that. That's great. So, it's 2024 as we record. Let's look out to 2044, 2054, 20 or 30 years from now. What does the whole environment look like?
Because I don't know that my profession still exists.
Really?
I don't. There'll be some small roles for us, but this AI thing has really, they have it going on now. We call ourselves brokers, like G2's a broker.
Yeah, sure.
But G2, there's brokerage firms in India that are charging $50 a day for a person, so to speak, and undercutting us all. They've also created AI programs that have about a 85% success rate on the title side and research side. So, I can see us being phased out in 20 years, or at least to a much lesser number of needs. So I do worry about that, Jeff. I do worry about that. I won't probably be working when I'm 75, but I don't know the people behind me. I just don't know what that future is for them.
Yeah. But there's still a relationship component.
1,000,000%. And that's the part that even some companies don't get. We have made some inroads and success on some of these projects that the only reason we did it was because of the relationships we built along the way.
Absolutely. I believe that.
And you can't take the place of seeing the whites of somebody's eyes.
Yeah.
Zoom is good, but it's not like in person.
You're right.
It does serve its purpose. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like being in front of somebody and being able to see them and talk to them, and you just get more out of somebody when you're dealing with them that way, in my opinion.
Yeah. Speaking of your opinion, and I do not want to get political, and I look at this carbon capture thing, is I don't know how legit it is. We don't need to argue.
I will tell you, the stuff that I've been given, and we're doing obviously several carbon capture projects. I will tell you they do have scientific evidence that will prove it does improve air quality.
Okay.
It does improve some of that. So like on a West Coast project, San Francisco, LA, it will definitely increase their air quality, no doubt. Does it truly affect the earth in the sense of what they're saying? If you listen to scientists who talk about the actual carbon components in our atmosphere, they would tell you it doesn't.
Yeah.
There's other scientists who'll tell you it does. I think there's a lot of political pressure on these major companies, BP, Exxon, Chevron. These guys are having to do some things. But what they're doing, I don't think it's hurting. I'll say that. I don't think it's hurting.
Yep.
It may not be helping, right? But it's definitely not hurting.
But it's not hurting. Yeah.
Right.
So how does the industry, the natural gas, the liquefied, the oil,
Sure.
the gas, how does the industry look in, say, 30 years?
There'll be some changes. Technology changes everything. You have, I do a lot of fishing in West, Hackberry, Big Lake, and they have 3 working LNG facilities in that area, 4, and to see the size of these tankers, and them, going literally across the ocean
Around
to
the
bring
world,
this liquefied natural gas, and people say, I don't understand how that can be worth it. It's like, well, you got to look at the markets. Over here it's at $2.80, and in Europe it's at $12.80. So $10 for every ton they're bringing across, they're making a ton of money.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But I do believe even that will slow. Technology is going to be able to find more gas in other locations, and we've seen that happen just here in the United States. We've seen the cycles come and go, and technology change, and the fracking industry came in at a much higher level and proved its worth, and so. Yeah, you've had a lot of changes. We have more natural gas than we can burn off in 100 years for the United States consumption. So
yeah, and then oil and gasoline, same thing.
Yeah, we the Permian Basin has more oil than people can possibly fathom. The one reserve they've not really touched that much. They've only got a little bit. Is the city of Los Angeles sits on potentially the largest oil reserve in the world.
I never have heard that.
Yeah, if you can go on Google Maps, Google Earth, whatever, you can zoom in on stuff in and around the Hollywood sign and behind it, the hills behind it. You can zoom in and see all the pump jacks out there, and
oh my goodness,
you can look in what movie? One of the Eddie Murphy movies. Beverly Hills Cop or Trading Places. Beverly Hills Cop, I think. And the very opening scene is he's like running through an oil field.
I kind of remember that.
It's filmed in Los Angeles,
right
outside Los Angeles. So they have a ton there, and they just restrictions. They just not allowed to drill for it. But
wow,
there's plenty of both, right?
Yeah, sure.
It's just I don't see the United States run into a electric, if you want to call it.
A totally electric deal.
It's until that technology comes around, and it's a far way off. I have no problem with people doing it. It's
I'm the same way. I don't have any problem with it.
I just think it's a long way off.
Yeah.
They've tried it on some of these 18-wheelers, and they're struggling. They're now telling them they're going to do it in tractors, and the farmers that I deal with are just like, this ain't going to work.
What's next for G2, and what's next for Greg and his family? You have a beautiful family, 3
Thank
girls,
you,
Elaine. I see you all the time where you need to be in church. But what's next for you guys?
That's a big, that without getting too religious, that's a big component of our life.
Absolutely.
Elaine and I have been blessed. All our kids are healthy. We haven't had the challenges. Our parents are getting up in age, as with everybody's, but and we'll face some of those challenges. But our core family, the rock is Elaine. That's not a doubt. And she keeps us all grounded. She keeps us with where the focus should be, which is, our faith and our relationships with each other and with God. So she's doing it right.
She's doing it right, but
mom.
So are you. And I didn't even think about talking about this, but you introduced me to a camp. Is it out in California?
JH Ranch.
JH Ranch. And you've brought all your
three
girls.
Yeah.
Like, tell me about that, because it's so important.
It's a camp. It's a father, daughter, mother, son, however you want to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a trust building camp. It's Christian based. It's a group out of they're now out of Birmingham, Alabama. And they do a fabulous job of putting you in stressful situations where you are a team. You and your child are a team. And so they put you through these challenges all week. And whether it's whitewater rafting, whether it's horseback riding, whether it's a high ropes course, it doesn't matter what that challenge is, but you have a component in there, and you spend 1 week with no cell phone, not because you couldn't have it, because there's no signal.
Yep.
With your child for a week. And it kind of hit me in the beginning. The guy said, when's the last time you spent 1 week with your child alone, right? Yeah. I mean, you're in cabins with other people. He's talking about like just unadulterated focus on your child for a week. So I did it with all three of my girls. You try and do it 8th grade going into freshman year, or freshman going into sophomore year. They're dealing with a lot of changes. They're dealing with a lot of society pressures, sometimes boyfriend, girlfriend pressures, academic pressures. It's a lot of change for them, and that's not to mention hormonal and physically and everything. So they just try and do that, and they base it around creating that trust relationship. Every one of my girls and I went. It was a different experience for all three of them.
Oh, wow.
Same location, same everything, but just totally different. And some of it had to do with where they were in their own life. Some of it had to do, I guess, with where I was. Yeah. Some of it had to do with just what was going on that week. It did a lot for us in a sense of respect and growth. I also like the fact that we can get there and make little comments behind Elaine's back. She doesn't know exactly what we're talking about.
That's so funny.
But it's just something special.
Yeah, I love that.
It was a special time, and I'm very happy I got to do it with all three.
Yeah, you're very fortunate. But a lot of people could do it. They just either have never heard of it, hopefully, or they choose not to do it. And you're blessed to be able to do it. But thank you for stopping, because you're busy. And taking that time out for each one of your daughters individually. It's a big deal.
It was important to me.
Yeah.
I got introduced to it by a friend of mine, Chris Rader. Mm-hmm. Chris, who also has 3 daughters. He and I were at dinner one time, and he said, "You got to do this." And so I went out there, and he promised me. He said, "Look, you pay for it. If you don't get out of it what I think you will, I'll pay you back."
Oh my goodness.
And he didn't have to pay me back.
yeah, exactly.
And I went 2 more times, and I offered that same thing to several other guys as well.
Huge.
It's like, hey,
That's
look,
huge.
If you go and have a bad experience, we'll pay for it. So It's just a really, really good, and I'm not saying it's not great for the boys. It probably is. I don't have that experience, but I know for my girls, it was really awesome. They still talk about it. They all wanted to go back and be counselors, but whether it be dancing or et cetera, their summers were already chock-a-block full. Sure. Anyway.
Well, that's huge. Thank you for sharing that with me. You mentioned from your coaching background, you were talking about how you work with your employees or team members. What kind of coaching did you do?
I did a whole lot of AAU basketball coaching when I was much younger.
Okay.
Then I got on staff with Coach Evans' when Coach Evans was here at UL. I did that for about 5 years with Coach Evans. And then I got into middle school coaching after that, just to keep my hand in it. Shorter season, less time. So I did that for
That's
better
amazing.
part of 15 years, maybe 18 years. Enjoyed it. And then when the girls got older, it just got to be too busy at times. So my little brother still does it. And so I bounce in and help him with some stuff here and there. It was a large part of my life for a very long time.
Yeah, that's huge. And I love how you're taking that experience and using it at the office.
I think you have to.
You do.
It's what I know, and coaching was something that I enjoyed. So for that perspective, it was, I only know how to coach people. I only know how to build the team and rally the troops. So that was kind of to me, you're moving forward, you're growing. There's going to be some hiccups along the way. You just got to be able to have everybody look past that, or still all have the same vision forward to be able to make it through. So it doesn't necessarily
Light bulb moment.
it doesn't necessarily make it be easier. But you got to keep everybody focused on what the final vision is and how to get there. And so I think that's kind of what the head coach is supposed to be doing. And if that's my role, then that's my role.
I love it, man. That's huge. So let me ask you this. You have a guy out here, or lady, who wants to start a business. You're an entrepreneur. They want to start their own business. What's a tip that you would give them?
I don't know if there's a substitute for hard work. I tell my guys who come to work for me, when we used to go to the courthouse, I'd say be the first one at the courthouse, be the last one to leave. And they can never say you're not putting in the time, right?
Yep.
Because you can only look at the books when you're physically there. Now we have online and we can look at them at 11 o'clock at night. But my point is, you got to put in the time, the effort, the energy to get ahead. This business, like most, and I'm not speaking out of turn, it's a relationship business. This is a who you know business. Yeah. I don't care if you're the best land group in the world. If you don't have any relationships, you're not getting any work. You got to be out there, and that's my job. My job is to be out there and shake hands and kiss babies and go to this function and that party and this and build those relationships.
Yep.
Then when I come back, then my role changes. Then I become the reviewer of the project manager's works. They're going through it on the daily. I come in on the weekly and I'm going through it, sitting down with them, looking at what they've got. Where are we on this? Where are we on that? What's our timeline here? Let's make sure we hit that. G2's motto is under promise and over deliver.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, there's no reason for them to come back to you, right? You either have to be the best at what you're doing or the cheapest at what you're doing. For you to really drive in business and for them to keep wanting you have to have the best quality work there is.
Yeah, that's right.
And so it's why we try and hire the best people, because I need to have the best quality work. I can't substitute that. So I don't know, Jeff. If I had to give advice to anybody, it would say, don't be afraid to know that you're going to put in a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come easy. Nothing comes easy, I know, but it doesn't come quick. Everybody's looking for the fast turnaround and the quick hit. It doesn't come quick.
Correct.
I mean, we've been successful, and we've been successful for a while. COVID hit us hard.
Yeah,
we lost our business for the better part of 18 months where we just didn't have any work coming in the door. I lost a lot of really good landmen who changed careers and become a XYZ.
Yep.
And they don't want to come back.
Yeah.
Even though they're making less money where they are, they have something tomorrow, right? So for us, that was a big hit. Right now, we're doing well. We have a lot of work. I think we're working in 4 states right now. And all of it pretty much out of South Louisiana. But again, I have to compete with every brokerage group out of Oklahoma City and Denver and Dallas and all that to be able to get that work.
Very interesting. That's a big change.
It's a different type of work. I don't have a storefront. that don't sell a widget. Nobody walks in the door unless they're dropping off a resume.
Correct.
I mean, it's a different type of atmosphere.
As you do interact with people, how do you try to leave them different and better just because they met you?
I'm sure my wife and I would have different answers for this question, but Jeff, I'm a half full guy. Yeah. That glass is always half full. I can see a lot of positive and a lot of bad things. Typically, I'm really, really calm under tense and adverse situations. When I meet somebody for the first time, I just try and get to know who that person is. One, you got to remember their name. Two, you got to know something specific about them, whether they graduated from the University of Texas or whether they really like watermelon. I mean, there's some component that's got to stick with you that you can carry with them so that the next time you see them, because that's when it's going to matter.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter that day. It's going to matter. But to me, it's more about just being a sincere listener, just trying to truly listen to what they're having to say. I think there's a lot to be said for people who have that knack. There's some people who just have that knack, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm really good with faces. I'm not as good, getting up there in age. I'm not as great as I was with names. I used to be phenomenal with names. I also used to be phenomenal with phone numbers, but now
you don't need phone
now we don't need that anymore. Yeah. So no, I'm telling you this because I think if I was that person and I was working hard and somebody said, hey, this is John, and you want to meet John, you want John to remember you, you got to be sincere. People see fake.
Yep.
So to me, it's being sincere. It's remembering who they are. And if you're going to leave them, you got to leave them positive. I mean, they're going to think good of you because when you walk away, they're going to think, man, I feel better after visiting with that person. To me, you just got to be sincere and positive. I try and emulate that. I really do. Obviously, we're probably not all successful every time, but, I'm definitely a half full positive guy. Absolutely.
Thanks for tuning in to I Finally Get It. To learn more about Greg and what G2 Land Services is up to, please visit the show notes. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you're an entrepreneur and you have a light bulb moment that you think would help other entrepreneurs, please reach out to me at jeff@ifinallygetit.com.